Okay, so now we're going to go on to our next project, which is going to be a laptop scene here. And in this one, got a lot of stuff going on. And here's the original piece of footage. Somewhere, there it is. There's the original piece. You can see there's a hand, there's a green laptop screen, and then we replaced it with that one. Okay. And there's actually a little bit of animation to it, so that as this guy's like pushing on the screen, these little things like highlight. And if I hit play, this is going to go really, really slow. And it's kind of at this time where we're, as we play further and further with Nuke, that it just becomes a little bit more slower and slower and slower. All right, so let's take a look at the node graph first, just to kind of understand what's going on in this big long chain of things. All right, so just like before, we read our piece of footage in, and this is just another piece from Hollywood camerawork.us. And because we had to, it was squished, we had to reformat it to fit. And then I have Keylight, which is essentially taking out the green screen area. And then I've eroded it, just kind of adjusting it, done some hue correction, some sharpening, and then I'm merging it on top of all this stuff here. Okay. Now all the stuff that's here is actually, realistically, it's only... Let me just scoot some of these out of the way. There we go. Okay. So here's my piece of footage being read in. These guys are nothing right now. I think these are accidentally created. Let me set those aside. Here's my piece of footage that I'm putting on this laptop screen. Here's a grade, here's a saturation, a sharpen, a defocus. And then that's going onto a card, being dropped into a scene. So if you remember from our part that we did with the keying, and we have the scene right there, that's kind of what we're doing here. Okay. So there's my renderer, and it's being dropped in. There's a light wrap, which I'll get to, and then some grading, some merging, and some adjustments, and some grain, and then the end of it. Okay, so it's not, I mean, it looks complex. I mean, there's lines going all over the place, and some of these I really can't control. I like this here comes out and goes this way, it comes out and goes this way, it comes out and goes this way. This goes over here, so things are all over the place. All right, so we're actually going to do our best to keep it as tidy as we can, but understand that we can't control everything, so we just do what we can. Okay. All right, so let's copy. I'll start with a piece of footage first. All right, so now we have the piece of footage here. Okay, and I just read it in, the buttons, and I'm going to hit S to set a key. Make sure that I have my preset over here, that's 1280 by 720. Make sure I have my project directory set, and I've been setting this to right into my 2560 folder right there. And that's good. Okay, I can close that. Alright, so now I can take this piece of footage and reformat it. And remember, again, I can't just hit the reformat because that's just going to crop it. I actually have to go through and say I want it to distort and make sure it's set to the 1280 by 720. So now it's going to squash it down into the correct aspect ratio. Okay. Now your first goal in many things that we do inside of Nuke is to track the piece of footage. Okay. So what we're going to do is, in this case, we've used a couple of the other trackers before. Just this regular tracker. We've used the planar tracker. I'm going to show how to use a camera tracker. Okay, and what this gives us is an actual 3D solution to this project. All right. So one thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that items that are moving we can't handle. So as I hit play, you can see what the piece of footage is going to look like The fact that his hand is moving is going to throw the track off, because we're trying to figure out how the camera's moving, and with this hand moving, it's going to try to figure out that that's part of it. It's going to think that this arm is stationary. Okay. Also, things like reflection are going to play a part too. So if you look over here in the glass, you can see how we're getting some reflection that's moving around. When I've tracked this before, I wasn't too concerned about the reflections because they didn't influence it to the point where it was ruining it. Okay, but the hand definitely does. All right. So basically, we have to tell the tracker that we don't want to track the hand. We just want to track everything else except the hand. So I'm going to add a camera tracker in here, and we'll scoot it down a little bit. And you'll see that there's a spot for mask, okay, where I can actually go in and specify a mask that I want to cut out and not use for that to track. Okay, so I'm going to add in a roto between these two. There it is. Reformat, then a roto, then our camera tracker. I'm just back at frame 0, and I'm just going to draw a shape around the hand. You don't want to go right up against the hand. Leave a little bit of room. Okay, so I drew a little mask around the hand. And if I hit A, you can see that now we have this mask around the hand. So now what I'm going to do is just go up to, let's say, frame 50, and then put the hand in position. I'm just grabbing my points on the roto and just scooting it over. And then we'll go up to frame like 100. I'll pull these over. Now I'm just kind of estimating, 50, 100. I may have to come back and tweak things. Okay, 200, and the hand's out of there. Okay. All right, so now I can go in between this and say, let's say at frame 26, it's still down here, so I can just position it, rotate it. There we go. And I want to follow it. If it sticks out a little bit, it's not a huge deal, but as long as I'm here, I'll just nudge it down. And for some other complex shots, you could actually do like track the hand, figure out where it moves, and then move the roto shape with it. Alright, so I just paused the video and just did the tracking on it. So if I hit play, you can see how the hand gets followed. And sometimes if you're working at a facility that has a large group of people, sometimes there will be just people who that's their job is just to draw these little roto shapes. You're the tracker guy, so your job is just to track, their job is to roto, and so on. Okay. And you can see there's a couple spots where it comes out. Kind of like, there you can see like the tip of the thumb is poking out. So it's not a huge deal that does that, okay? So we don't have to be concerned about every little nook and cranny popping out of there. All right, so now that we have our roto here, and we have our camera tracker, I can tell the camera tracker to use the alpha as its source, okay? So now when I hit A, you can see where that is, and that's where it's masking off, is that. So if we go to settings here, and I say preview features, I can see where it's going to be putting points. So in case, just for fun, I'll go to my roto and invert this. In case I mask the wrong area, you can see now it's only tracking the hand. Where I invert the mask now, and it's now tracking the outside of the hand. Okay. I could also come back to my settings here, under the camera tracker, and maybe make this 500 features. And so what that gives us is a lot more. Now if you look, it's doing a lot of features right on the screen. Well, the screen is like a very tricky thing. How is it going to track anything on the screen, because it's all just that shade of green? So I'm going to stick to 150, because 150 is going to be a little more picky about what it's doing. I don't know, I might be able to go up to 200, probably not. Let's say 150. All right, so I'm gonna stick to 150 here. The minimum length, just so we can go through a couple of these settings, the minimum length is going to give us how long it has to track. So if this point here is on screen and it's able to follow it for at least 3 frames, we're good. Okay, that's what that's saying. If it only tracks it for 2 frames, then Nuke is just going to ignore it. All right. So if I want to make sure this is a little bit more accurate, I could pump this up to like 10 frames. But you just have to be careful because sometimes it can't track something for 10 frames and then you end up with not enough stuff, right? So it's always a game of, trying trial and error. Okay, we're set up a free camera move, so you could say we're doing a linear motion, we're doing planar motion, we're doing rotation only. This is more of a free camera where it's just kind of like moving in. Let's see, smoothness, it's all good. Okay, so let's go back to our camera tracker. If there's any lens distortion, we could pop that on. If there's any focal length, then we could put that in as well. Now we do have, if I jump to Hollywood Camera Work, and we go to their plates, okay, right up here, the technical specs. These are HD plates, 1080p and 720p, shot with an HVX 200. Okay, so remember we talked about cameras, camera stuff. So the HVX 200 sorry, not film gate, sensor size. And I can look for the information for the sensor size for this. And I found in here it's 4.6809, there it is, by 2.6330. Okay, so in here where it says film back size, 4.6809 by 2.6330. Yep. All right, so now this is just reading in the film back, which will just help it, create a more accurate solve. And then we can track it. And what it's going to do is it's going to go back to frame 0. It's going to go through and track all the points that it can, ignoring the hand area. And then once it gets done with it, it'll go back and redo it again, like backwards. Okay, so I'm just going to pause this, and then we'll wait until it's done. All right, so now it's gone through, and it's tracked both ways. So it went all the way down to 218, and then came all the way back. And now as I click and drag, you can see all the different tracking points that this thing has done. Okay, so it's kind of like planar tracking, except it's basically tracking every single feature that's on here, creating little markers for it. Here's little markers, and if I hold my mouse over it, you can see how long. This track length is 147 frames. This one is 184. Things where his hand intersects. Okay, like let's go back to here. You can see that they disappear as his hand's intersecting it because it's no longer reading it as a point. Okay, so now is this a good track? We don't know. All right. Typically, what I like to do is kind of go through it and just delete any tracks that I think are bad ones. So if I see something on the screen like in the middle, I'll typically delete the stuff in the middle, all right, because I don't need those. Okay, so let's see if it's a good track. So I'm going to go over here to hit solve. And now it's going to go through and just do its math on it. And now it's solved it. So now as I click and drag, there we go, there's all my stuff. All right, now you'll see we have red ones in here. These red ones are most likely not correct. That's why Nuke's giving you the indicator that it's red. The green ones are most likely correct, and the yellow ones, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay, so we can go to auto tracks here, and if I come down here to maximum track error, maximum error, I can pull these down, and as I pull it down, you can see more of these are getting red, meaning that Nuke's saying, okay, well, now these ones have a lot of error in there. I can also pull this down and then go to delete rejected. Yes. And I'll delete all the ones that are bad. And then I can go back to my camera tracker and say update solve. Hit OK. And now what it's going to do is go through and use my new points as my tracking information. Alright, so now that we have this, we still don't know if this is a good solve. Okay, where's my viewer at? So now what we need to do is this creates a camera solve. So basically what it's created is a camera that knows where this thing is moving, but it hasn't created the camera yet. We have to go over here and say create the camera. Okay, now that we created the camera, there it is. We hit tab up here. While our mouse is up here, we hit tab, and you'll see that we have all these like floating points. Okay, I'm going to double click my camera so I can see it. There it is. And as I move inside here, you can see that this camera is now moving what should be the same way that the camera in the scene is moving. Okay, so as we look at this, we should be able to see, yeah, this looks like the way the camera was moving. It looks like we were starting back here, and then the camera kind of moved in towards the laptop and came down a little bit. So that looks like it's a pretty good solve. Okay, the real test is going to be when we start putting objects in the scene. So I'm going to hit tab again up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off, and I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to add in the model builder. Okay, this is where you can actually build models inside of Nuke. All right, so let me show you the setup on this. Here's the texture, here's the geo, here's the cam, here's the source. So camera, camera, source, source. There we go. And then I can just click on this and hit 1, hit spacebar again. And then come over here. Why aren't we seeing it? Oh. Make sure I pick the camera from the list. Hit lock. Oops, there we go. Okay, so this little red thing has to be checked on. This has to be picked on the right camera. And now we're basically locked in. Okay? So now it's showing us through our camera what this is looking like. Now here's the cool part, is I'm just going to go back to frame 0, and I'm going to click on this thing, and I'm going to create a card. Okay? It might take you a few, tries to get used to this. So I'm just going to click and drag, and this is creating a card. And then I can just click on this point and drag this point to the corner. So basically it's kind of like doing the corner pin. Again, I can move it like that. There we go. And I'm going to grab this one and corner pin this. And grab this one and corner pin that. And click this one and adjust that. I really want to get close to this just to make sure I'm right on it. Oh, and a side note also, edit, preferences, and under viewers, 3D control type, you change this to Maya instead of Nuke. It makes things a little bit easier to kind of navigate around here. Some of the computers at the college are not set up, and most likely if you have this at home, it's not set up for that either. Alright, so that's pretty good right there. Okay, so now what this does is it kind of sets a starting point. So at frame 0, this is our starting point. So now I can jump up to, let's say, frame 100. Okay, so now obviously this is off, but I'm going to grab one of the corners and drag one of the corners back to its corner. There it is, back to the corner. And then what we should see is that the other corners are back in their corners. Now, it might be a little bit off just because of perspective. So I can always adjust that a little bit. There we go. Alright, then I can go in between at 50 and just verify, yep, that looks good. It's right on. Alright, so now here's the awesomest part of it, is that now when we rewind this, we hit play, we can see that plane is now following it. Okay, so it's a very cool way to be able to do this, because now I have this card that's set up. And not only do I have a card, but I actually have a piece of geometry there. That's a plane that I could then export into Maya and do whatever I want on. Or export that image into After Effects and do whatever I want on it. So it's very cool to have this ability. Right? Okay, so now I let this cache through, and you can see that there's no wiggle to this. It just lines up perfectly. And I can even just kind of scrub through and see. Now there is, like, at the end here, there's a little bit of a movement. I could always adjust that too. Just come in at the end and just kind of pull this over. I just have to be careful because I don't want to move the other points. Okay. All right. Now if I do want to move it because I realize, oops, I totally messed this up. I really want to adjust the entire thing. I have to go back to where these are kind of pink. So if you see how this is pink, and then when I came up here at around 50, oops, that was 100. There it is. You see these are pink too. Those are the other ones I adjusted. There was one back here, I believe. I don't know where it was. All right. So we have that as well. I could also, just for fun, if I click on one of these things, I just remembered I can take this and zoom in 400 or 800%. Okay. And I can even make that smaller or turn it off completely. All right. So now that we have this model builder here, what I can do is I can click on this and say create a card. So I just say bake. All right. So it baked that piece of geometry. So now I get this card. And I'm just going to double click it and call this screen card. Okay. So let's recap what we've done so far. We brought the footage in, we reformatted it, we did a roto on the arm so that we could follow where the arm's moving. We tracked it with the camera, making sure we use the roto to say don't track where the arm is. And then once we had our track, we solved it and we exported a camera. Then we created the model builder, and then we created that piece of geometry and then adjusted it throughout. And then we have this card that we've exported from our model builder. Okay, so this stuff here is actually stuff that we don't even need to worry about anymore. Okay, so I can actually just disconnect this and just set it over there. Okay, that's our tracking information. Okay, oops. Sorry, we do need the camera. There we go. We just don't need the other stuff that's over there. Okay, now I could, this little green line that's here, I can go into my preferences just so you can see it. And somewhere in these 4 billion things, you can turn off the line color. There we go. In the node graph area, I can turn off expression arrows. And now we won't have that arrow connecting it, but I like to keep it on. Okay, just that way we know that this is connected to that. Okay, so just ignore the green line right there. And I can just move this to that side. All right, so now we have a card, we have a camera. Just like before, we need to create a scene. And then from the scene, we need to create a scan line renderer. Okay, we'll connect the camera into the camera. There we go. We'll connect the card and the camera into the scene. And then on this card, I'm just going to drop a checkerboard. Okay. So now here's what we have is we have, ignoring this right now, we have a camera connected to a scene, we have our card connected to a scene, and then we have that hooked up to a scanline renderer. So now when we view the scanline renderer, come on, and then we hit tab. Yeah, let's close these. All right, we have checkerboard. We should be seeing that. I'm surprised that we're not. Just make sure that my thing is set to 1280, which it is. Alright, something happened when I originally created my card where it didn't create it. So I just went back to my model builder, made sure I had the card clicked, and then hit bake again, and then it created the correct card. So there's just a little fluke thing inside there. Alright, so I replaced it with a constant also, that's no big deal. Screw that up. Okay. If you look at this as we zoom in, you can see that it's a bit jagged around the edges. If I go down to my render, the scanline render, right now there's no anti-aliasing. Okay, that's what's causing these little jaggeds. So I want to take that and do high anti-aliasing that fixes that. And I could also go to my multi-sample and I could pull this up higher and get a nicer edge as well. Okay, so you're not stuck with those basic settings. We can, fix it up a little bit. And I'm just going to pop the object scene off of here. Oops, now the object scene, the background. There we go. So now we just have this little yellow card, and if we rewind it and play it, you'll see that that new yellow card that we have is now going to move the way that the camera was moving. So we're going to zoom up on this and see that. Okay. Now I did pipe in, just as we were watching it before, I piped in the background into here just so we can see it. But I wouldn't want to just pipe it in there. I want to actually do a merge on here so I can adjust things after the fact. So I do a merge, and I'm going to connect this as my A, and I'm going to connect this as my B. And we'll preview that. Okay, and there's our screen on top of it. Let me swap back to this and just kind of adjust some of these parameters here. Okay. So again, this is just making sure our stuff looks neat. Okay, that's good. Satisfied with that for now. All right, so now that we have this, as I go up to, let's say, 60, you can see that his arm is cut off. Okay, so we basically have a layer of the background with the video in it, with his arm, and then we have this yellow card just sitting on top. So what we need to do is we need to cut out the green area here. Okay, so that's why we have to go to here, to here, and we need to do a green screening on this. All right, I'm done with this roto, so I'm just going to hit disable. And then I'm going to add, I used key light, that seemed to be a good one to use to do this. Okay, so I'm going to use key light, and I'm going to go to my screen color and eyedrop it. Okay, I hit A so I can see what it looks like. And I'm just using Control Alt and Shift to try to find, what's the best color of green to use. I think it's going to be something like right about there looks good. Okay, I'm getting the most amount of green removed. Okay, now if I hit A, you'll also notice that there's a bunch of stuff over here that's kind of getting picked up. Well, that's where we're going to come into our screen gain and pull this, and we can adjust the screen balance a little bit. Actually, we'll leave the screen balance where it was. Okay, the next one we're going to go to is screen matte, where I can clip the black. Okay, so you can see on the edges of the screen how we're pushing it further out, and then I can clip the white. Oops, too far. Okay, now what I'm trying to accomplish here is to cut this thing out, and I'm really not cutting it out as cleanly as I would like. You can see there's still some noise over here where we're getting some gray values. There's still some stuff here and some stuff up there. So I can play with these settings a little bit more. Maybe I can get some better results. I went too far with that. All right, I'm still just not getting the, I'm not really happy with the results I'm getting with this. You can also do a screen pre-blur and see, no, it's not going to do anything. Okay, so one thing I can do is try to isolate this to this area. All right, so if I go over here to where I did my other key light here, you see that I've used this in mask feature from the scan line. So if I go to here, here's my key light. I'm going to use this rendering as a mask. Okay, so now what's that going to do? Let's go to key light and reset it with this button. Hit A again. And I'm going to go down here where it says in mask, and I'm going to say use the alpha channel. And under inside mask, I'm going to say, let me hit A so we can see it. I'm going to say normal. Come on. No, there it is. I was looking at the wrong thing. Okay. So now we have this inside mask using a use the inside mask. So we set this inside mask to normal. We've set the in mask to alpha. I could also invert it if I see that I want to do the opposite, but I don't. Okay, so now what this should do, if we go back to final result, is that as I go through and I pick my color, there we go, inverted alpha is what I want. It's just isolating these elements here. Okay, so it's just focusing on the screen. It's not worrying anything about the stuff that's around the outside of this, just what's on that screen area. So I inverted my mask, and now I can deal with just that screen area. So I'm hitting A, just kind of toggle the coloring, or the alpha channel, and now I can kind of play with these to get some nicer results. Okay, I don't mind if there's a little bit of bleed over here. It actually will look like a shadow. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so now if we come down here to our merge and we view it, okay, we're seeing essentially the screen with still the hand. All right, well, we put the alpha channel on here, so why are we seeing it? If I hit Shift X on this, what's going to happen is it's going to flip the A and B. Okay, so the B is now the background, which is that, okay, which is our little card. The A is now our screen, which is this one. So what it's doing is it's automatically cutting it out. So if I were to look at just this key light one, this has a hole in it. Okay, so if I layered this on top, what I'm doing is I'm seeing through to the card only in those areas. And then now I can go through and just kind of preview this and see what it's looking like. Okay, making sure there's nothing that's kind of like funky happening. You can see maybe this is a little bit too strong in the corner. Okay, so I can always tweak the setting here. I don't want to go too harsh with it because I'll start to get like this where it's just blocky. Right, and that's where that screen balance can also come in handy too. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so now we have our hand cut out from the background. All right, and if we look over here, we have this stuff happening. Let's go to key light. That's key light. I did erode it, and I did some hue correction and stuff on that. I could also take this, because it's still a little bit too sharp around the edges, and I could go into where I have my key light area, and I can add an erode blur, and I'm just dropping it in right after my key light, okay? Because that will give me the ability to tweak my mask. So you can see I can tweak the mask. But more importantly, I want to be able to kind of blur it a little bit. I just want to soften the edges and get a little bit of bleed over between the two objects. Here it is without it. You get these harsh pixels. There it is with it. Okay, so it just helps kind of blend things together a little bit nicer. It's too much. Yes, I think one would probably be good. Okay, so that works. So then what we want to do is we also want to go through, and I've added in, here's this hue correct. I was getting a little bit of green on the bottom of the hand here, and it's, I don't know, I'm just not really seeing it with this one. Sometimes you have to change the color of this constant. I typically will have several images over here, like a checkerboard. I'll drop the checkerboard on there so I can see what it looks like. And here I can definitely see the green is a lot more obvious, okay? Or I'll drop a constant on here that's gray. That way I'm kind of looking at this under different conditions and kind of seeing some of the stuff, all right? So I'm going to go back to, after my erode here, and I'm going to add a hue correct. And the hue correct allows me to go into the green area, and if I move my mouse over this, where the hand is, I can see this yellow line kind of popping straight up, okay? So this is where those colors are for this particular thing. So I'm just going to take this and pull it down a little bit. I'm going to take this guy and pull it over a little bit, take this guy and pull it over a little bit. Okay, I don't want to go crazy with this, I just want it subtle. There we go. So now I've gotten rid of some of that green that's on there. Let me disable and re-enable. You can definitely see there's a green cast that's now gone. Okay, now it is coloring the background a little bit. That's not a big deal. I don't mind that shift. It actually kind of warms the image up a little bit. Okay, I could also go to red suppression too if I saw, you know, maybe this is a little bit too much. And I'll just scoot this over. Scoot this over. And by scooting this over, I'm just isolating that area. And pull it down. And now we're more in the cool zone. Okay. I could also go through, let me just undo that. I could also add a saturation node. And I could also desaturate it too. Okay. Or I could just highlight the greens and just desaturate the greens in this. And if I disable the hue correct, we're looking at that saturation. There you go. So I just kind of desaturated the entire thing, not just the green channel. Right? So sometimes it's just kind of playing around with the different color combinations until you get what you want. Maybe I'll add a little bit of blue in here. I think I just went too far on the green. There we go. All right, so that looks pretty good there. Let's go through, pull this down. Okay, so now what we have is all the stuff over here, that's our card. That's just getting the screen to look the way the screen looks. This stuff here is our computer monitor getting that to look the way it looks. Okay, and so I'm just going to come over here. I've sharpened the image a little bit also. This is because if we look at the computer screen, oops, it's kind of like dirty and dingy. So I went through and I just did a sharpen. And I just played with these until I got something I was happy with. Obviously that's too much. So you just kind of play with this amount. Yeah, the minimum's what I really want it. Let's see if I can take the maximum down. No, yeah, so I believe I just kind of adjusted this a little bit. And it just makes things a little bit crisper. You can definitely see it like here. Okay. So it just gives us a little bit more sharpness to the image. And then I did a merge on this with that. Okay. And then the next thing I did was I added a light wrap. So let's pretend here that we have, back to this yellow one, something like this. There should be some yellow kind of bleeding onto the hand, just like our green screen was kind of bleeding onto his hand. So I'm going to do what's called a light wrap. So I'm going to add a light wrap here. And it's an A and B type thing. So where's my original? It's right there. Where's my light wrap color? It's right there. So now if I hit 1 to preview the light wrap, and I like to say generate the wrap only, that way I can focus on just that wrap color. And let's see, intensity, there we go. So I'm going to blur the foreground, and I'm going to play with my intensity until I get it to look nice. Adjust my saturation, adjust how much of this is happening. That's good. Okay, so now this gives me, if I turn this on, so if I disable and re-enable this, you can kind of see that little bit of yellow kind of filling into the hand. Okay, so now that we have this, which is generate the wrap only, this thing, then we can take it and drop it back onto it. Okay, so this is where we get into this kind of like crossing each other, is because now that I have this, oops, have this thing set up where here's my original image, here's the light wrap. I'm going to merge these two together. So here's my A, here's my B. Let's go into the light wrap and just take the intensity up a little bit. Okay. I'm not seeing a whole big difference here, so I'm just going to hit Shift X. There we go. Now my A and B are switched because A should be on top and B should be on the bottom. And then I can adjust that. I'm still not liking the softness of this. And this erode is just not doing what I want it to. So I'm just going to delete that erode. And I'm going to add in a blur node. And I'm just going to blur my alpha channel. Nope. That's not going to do what I want it to do either. I mean, it's kind of doing it, but not really. I'm going to go to my key light. And inside here, I can go to screen softness. There we go. Okay. And then I can also play with my settings again just to kind of pull this back in so that I don't have this weird line right there. I could also use erode at this point to create that. Let's leave that where it is. Yep, I guess we'll just try an erode. Now let's see if it's on the end result here. Alright, it's not on the end result, so I guess I'm just kind of worrying for nothing. Alright. So there we go. Alright, so now I'm just going to take this and connect it there, delete that. There we go. Okay, so now let's look at this again. So we have our read node reformatted. We're done with this roto. We just keep it there for fun. We did key light to pull out the green screen. We did a hue correct to pull out some of the coloring on the hand where it was green. We did a sharpen just to kind of lighten it up a bit. And then we did a light wrap utilizing this as our A and then our card as our B. That way the card kind of blends onto the back, onto the hand. And then we did a merge for these two objects. And then we took this and merged it on top of the card. Okay, so now we're getting this kind of, glow around there that if we didn't have the light wrap, you can see that it kind of takes away from it. Where here, it actually looks like the hand is getting some of that illumination. I can probably take the intensity down a touch and play with the diffuse a little bit. Okay. Also, my blurs I can adjust too. Okay, depending on how strong I want that to appear, I can tweak that. There we go. Okay, so we're nearing completion. Okay, now in this guy, what I did is I took the light wrap and added it after. That's acceptable to do too. Okay. Then I graded the light map, and there's the merge. Okay. So then what I want to do is if we come back over to our footage right here, I hit A, you see that there's no alpha channel in here anymore. Okay. As we start merging stuff, we start losing our alpha channels and start losing some of our other pieces of footage. What happened here? Looks like my laptop is now purple. I'm just going through and disabling nodes. I'm gonna figure out where this is coming from. Well, something from key light, probably when I was playing with these colorings down here. Yep, it was. There we go. Okay. So then what we can do is, if we go back to that, okay, there's no alpha channel here. So what I can do is go and find the alpha channel, which is right here. Okay. So we should be able to see the alpha. There it is. And when I come in here to merge this in, I want to say that I'm outputting the RGBA of this. Yeah, that should be merging the alpha in there, but because this is kind of overriding it or conjoining with it, we're losing it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this, or copy it. So I'm going to copy the alpha from our card here into this chain. Okay, so now when we look at the alpha, that's what we're getting. Okay, so let's put a little box down. So now I'm going to invert the alpha. Not all the channels, just the alpha. So now it's just the card. And then what I can do is add a glow. Okay. And I'm going to use my width channel and pick the alpha. Alright. So this is kind of doing a light wrap also. So we could actually decide, do we want to use the light wrap or do we want to use this glow? And it's really going to depend on the end look of this and what piece of footage you're ending up with. So I'm going to take the size down some. I'm actually going to change my image because this yellow is just burning my eyes. I'll do color bars. There we go. So now I have this glow where we can play with the brightness of the glow. We can play with the size of the glow. Okay, you just want to kind of look at some reference or look at your own laptop and see, which way is going to look the best. Okay, I like having the light wrap on there because it kind of takes off some of this edge. And I still am getting some weird line around the edge here. Let me go to this sharpen. I'm just going to say sharpen the RGB. Okay, that's good. And then I'm also going to do a erode on this still. Oh, see, it's still there. It's coming from something else. It's not coming from our light wrap. Let me add a grade in here. I'm going to grade just the alpha channel. There you go. Well, I got a pre-mult in here. Yep, that took care of it. Took care of most of it anyway. Okay, and I can still come back to my key light and probably play with this little bit. Yep, look at that. If I take this down negative point. Negative 0.5, it seems to take out a majority of it. Alright, so I went to key light. I took my screen dilate down to negative 0.5. That sucked it in a little bit. I also added the pre-mult, which took care of a lot of that. Okay, so that's much better. Now we're not getting that weird funky line around it. Okay, so now that we have this, we have our light wrap. You can, zoom in and take a look at the setup here. Okay, now what we can do is start to really tweak what the end result is looking like. Okay, so that essentially this thing is done. Here's the glow, there's the glow. All right, now this other part here, scoot this over. This other part here, I originally had this here, which really looks complex, but it's not. Okay, but I want you to see it. You don't have to do this part. If you want to use a still image on the screen, you can use a still image on the screen. But what I'm going to show is really where you can really play with some of these things. All right. So now we have this gray screen. Let me darken the gray screen. Let's say that. And we are going to go and create some images on the gray screen. So I'm just going to go and create a color wheel image. Okay, and the color wheel image is just that. Okay, and it has an alpha, so it's cut out. That's the only reason I use it. Okay, so I'm going to just merge these two items together. Alright, let me go and look at the bottom. There we go. Alright, so now he's clicking on this big circle in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to move this circle so that it's positioned where his finger's hitting. So I'm going to hit T for transform. I'm going to scale it down. There it goes. I'm going to hold the control key and move my pivot to the center of this. Alright, and then I'm just going to wait for his hand to hit. Okay, it looks like it's hitting at about 59, so I'm just going to put this over here. There we go. And I can actually lower my quality of this. Maybe 4. That way it goes a little bit quicker. So it looks like he's hitting it about 60 or so. So I'm just going to key this on. Okay. So I'm going to go to this merge, and I'm going to turn it off on the mix, set a key, go up a frame, and turn it on. So now as we watch this, we're going to see that his hand comes in and it hits it. Okay, and it was actually, it looks like it was a little bit, yep, it was a little bit soon. I was at 51, I should have been at 61. Alright, so I can just delete the animation on here. It's much easier. So I'll set a key, go up a frame. Set a key, go up a frame, pull that up. Okay, so now as we watch it, there we go. We see it kind of pop onto the screen. And then we wait for the next one to happen. Right about 107. Okay. So now I want to keep these guys. Sorry. Let's scoot this up. Yeah, let's clear these guys out of the way. This is going to kind of expand off to the right. I want to keep these where they are. I want to reuse this thing, but make a new transform, make a new merge. So I'm going to make a new transform, connect it here. Make a new merge, and pop it on there. Okay, and I'll do the same kind of thing here, where I shrink it down. It's about the same size. I reposition it. There we go. And then 107 looks like my keying spot, so I'm just going to turn it off, set a key, go up a frame, crank it up. Okay, so now we'll watch the 2 getting hit. There's the 1 coming up. And there's the 2 coming up. Okay, and that 130-ish, there's another one. So I'm just going to copy these 2, paste them, and then hook them up. So the merge I can just slide in here. The transform I'll put onto this dot node. And the merge came with keys, the new one, so I'm just going to delete it, no animation. And then go to my transform. And I like to clear these out because it just gets cluttery. I'll slide this over. There we go. Go to merge. Set a key, go up a frame, pull it up. And then, of course, we want to always preview this. And then you probably want to preview them at the end in full res. And 155 looks like the next one. So we'll do the same thing. Let me just scoot. So we'll set up more. Connect the merge. Connect the transform. And you get the idea of what I'm doing here. And I could also go to the dope sheet and grab these keyframes and just pull them down to where I'm at. Right there. Switch back to the node graph. Go to my transform and move it over so that it's under the finger. There we go. And then we'll hit play. Where it goes to the next one. There's one more that it hits. Right? Maybe not. It's hard to see. Comes over and he hits this one. Pops on. And I could put one over there. I think 4 is probably good for now. Okay. So now that I have this, it looks wonderful. Okay. But now let's go watch just this animation. Okay, so I just viewed this last merge. Okay, so these things just pop on. That's all that's happening. Okay, so what I can do is I can write this out. There it is. I'll go to Folder, Home, Desktop, D Drive. Screen replacement. Exported screen. Oh. Why did I hit cancel? Screen dot pound 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 dot PNG TIFF whatever, and then render it. And I don't want to use the input. I want to use my global settings. So hit OK. Alright, so what this is going to do is it's going to export a sequence out that I could then bring into After Effects and do a final animation. These are just placeholders, just to say something's going to happen here at this time, here at this time, here at this time, and here at that time. So then I can go into After Effects and create a nice little animation for it. Alright, now here is an exported map that I did previously. So, oops, not that. Where is my footage? Right there. Hidden. Okay, so here's my previous footage. I did these little glowy things just to kind of get them. Okay, so I took that, and then I found a picture of a map and did some After Effects work on it. And then I just did kind of like these little hit targets with some effects. Okay, so I just set this whole thing up just like you do a regular thing. I'll go to a new comp, new project. So I double click. Okay, then I go to my folder, screen replacement, exported screen, there it is, wazam. I drop this onto my new comp, and now I have inside here, I don't know why the, interpret footage main, I don't need the background, but just for fun, ignore. There, and I can see the background color. Alright, so now I know when things are going to happen. So whatever I do inside After Effects, I can use my After Effects genius and create something of, what's happening when he's touching the screen? Is there like an icon that he's clicking on and it's opening something, or is he clicking something and dragging it over here? Alright, so I can see if he's clicked this and then it pops over to there. Well, maybe I'll create a little shape. Where's the shapes? Right here. Oops, I want a mask, I want a shape. There we go. And we'll take the fill to red, sure. Okay, so let's go and hide that for a second. Okay, so it's popping on here, so I can just shrink that. So, oops, a little early or late. There's that. And then here's where it slides over. So I can just keyframe the positioning of it. 110 is where it needs to be. So here to 110. Drag it over there. Okay, and then he's going to do something else. Pops a new one right there. So we'll duplicate. And we'll take keyframes off. We'll take the keyframe there and position it. It's right there. There we go. So these are just like little quick things just so you can get the idea of what's happening. That slides over there. This slides over here. And I could replace those with pictures of cats if I wanted to, or whatever. Okay? Whatever I want the screen to look like, I can create everything inside of After Effects. Let's go into the shape layer and just kind of pick some better colors. Just eyedrop this and then go to saturation. 20. 4. That's good. Let's get rid of the stroke. Let's actually take that fill and there we go. Alright. So now we just have these two little things. Doot, doot. Whatever those things are doing on his computer. And we'll put some text in here. Oops. And my squish screen is hard to get to anything that I actually need to get to. So there's my centering. What did I hit there? Alright, I don't want a stroke color on this, so I'm just going to hit no stroke. We'll take the size of this up. And again, this is just kind of like a quick little demo just to kind of show it. Obviously, you want to pick better colors, better objects in your scene. There we go. Wonderful. So then I just render this out. Add the render queue. The ping sequence works. I don't need any alpha channel, so I can just do RGB. I'll also do... there we go. So I'm just dropping my screen inside here. This is how you could do like a vignette inside of After Effects. There we go. And now I'm just going to do a multiply, so you see it's darker. And then I can go to my mask and feather it and invert it. There we go. And maybe even expand it a bit. Wonderful. Okay. So now we'll take this and render this out, not the other one. So ping sequence, yes. Where are we going to save this to? What are we going to name it? Let's call this new screen. Keep everything organized because it's very, very easy to lose that. And no spaces. So the screen2 dot bracket pound 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 bracket dot ping. Alright, so now that's done. So now we go back into Nuke. Okay. Now all the stuff that we have here is all the stuff that we want on the screen. Well, we just took that in After Effects, handled it, so now we have basically a flattened image. So we read our new screen. There it is. And then we just drop this as the texture for the plane. Okay? So we don't need this stuff anymore. We can just keep it over there. So now if we come down to the bottom and we preview it, you'll see that our best desktop ever is now on the screen. And then if I just maximize this, I'm going to pause, play it, and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's almost done. I did realize that, after the fact, obviously, that I needed to match the movement better, but there it is. Okay, so you can see how his finger kind of lags. He hits it, a little bit of lag, and then he swipes it over. So I could have done even the animation inside of Nuke, just to get the exact movement that I would need on there. Okay, but you get the idea that whatever we do in After Effects, we can kind of come back and play with it inside here. Now I want to look at this and see, wow, there's a lot of blur or whatever on his finger still. So I think this glow might be just a little bit too much. Yeah, see how much glow is coming off that desktop? Can't really read it. So let's take the glow's brightness down. Let's take the size down. There we go. So that looks better there. I think I want to also go up to my light wrap and maybe take the blurriness up. I'm going to hit 1 so I can look at this and see what it's looking like. I'm not seeing anything right now. There we go. My diffuse is way up too high, so I was trying to get it to work correctly. Let's take this down. Nice little line in there. It sounded like that fingertip was cut off. Let's go back to our luma tolerance. There you go. Let's pull that background blur up some. Alright, that's good. Okay. And then I can go even after this light wrap and do a little blur to this. And not a blur to it. So I just want to blur the RGB. Maybe I should do it inside here and just take the intensity down. That's what I want to do. There we go. That's better. So now it's a bit more subtle. Okay, so now we can look at the glow and see that it looks much nicer than what we had before. I'm just going to go through and double check all my stuff. Good, okay. And this is full res, there we go. Okay, now we're going to introduce a couple more nodes to this too. And if I look somewhere inside here, I had them right there, then I probably deleted them. Right. Well, we'll add those guys back in. So we're going to go into this, grabbing the right node graph. And we're going to take our original piece of footage that we have here. And I'll leave the hue correct there, leave the pre-mult, and the sharpen. We'll do it after that, actually. Okay, so we're going to do it between pre-mult and sharpen. I'm going to add in a denoise, dropping it on here. And what this denoise is going to do is it's going to try to remove some of the grain work that's on this. So I'm going to put this in an area like this, off to the edge. And if I disable it, you can see, let me just crank this up a bit. There we go. So you can see all the noise that's there. By having it on, it just kind of softens the look of a lot of this area. It just kind of blends in some of these areas that can be blended in. Okay, so that's going to help get rid of some of the noise that's inside here. Now we also have to go to our image that we have, and we should put a grain on it. Okay, now we don't want to use the alpha, so we'll just turn that off. Okay, and then we want the grain here to match similarly the grain there. So I'm just going to take my intensity probably down to 0.2, 0.4, so it's not so high. The grain size, if I look at some of these things, obviously I did just, you know what, I'm putting it on the wrong spot. Because we took the noise off of this, we're not really seeing any grain in here. So that way I can go to the very end of this after my glow, and then put the grain on. There we go. And now the grain will match both pieces because they're all part of the same thing. So I'm going to take the grain down actually in size. So it's a little bit tinier pieces of grain. And there we go. Okay. So now we have this grain on here, which works out pretty good. We can do a grade on it. I did the grain down here, that's fine. We can do a grade on the whole thing. So after my glow before the grain, I could add a grade to this, and I could give it a little tint. So I could say, you know, I want to kind of warm or cool the scene down, or warm the scene up a little bit, or shift my colors slightly. Or I can go under, oops, multiply. That was gain, okay. So I can tweak my color some. I could also play with the black point and say that my black point is actually going to be, you know, a little bit in the green area or whatever. Okay, so I can really kind of customize what this is looking like just by playing with some of these color combinations. So there we've kind of, you know, it has kind of like a warm coloring to it. And by adding the grade, now we're more into the blues, greens and blues. Let's go to the white point, and we can do a similar thing there. There we go. So you can see how we can take this from this kind of reddish tone and kind of make it a little bit cooler. You just gotta be careful with it. You don't go too far, and I think I've probably gone too far in some of these. And I can do another hue correct on the entire thing, and maybe even suppress some of this green that's popping up. That's what I get for not having it on while I was playing with it. Alright, so let's take a look before and after. So I definitely like the after better in this case. It gives it more of like a finished feel. And then I'm going to go and add a merge. And this is where we do our vignette. So let me add a dot node in here. Right there. And then we'll add a roto. Just tidy this up a little bit more. There we go. And let's see, merge. Let's go to the roto and invert it. And you see that we're getting this alpha from before. Okay, so I need to get rid of that alpha. So I'll just come after this grade, do a shuffle, and put black into the alpha. There we go. Alright, so added the roto, added the merge. Make sure I change my mask here to alpha. That way it'll read it in. And there's many ways to do this. This is just like one of the ways you can do it. I've shown a couple other ways as well. And then if you need to invert this, obviously you don't want the dark in the middle. We want the dark on the edges. Okay, so we could pull this in more if we wanted to kind of accent the edges a little bit more, darken up the centers a little bit more. There we go. So now we're good. So now we can just kind of, run through this full screen, hit the play button, let it go through, see if you want to tweak anything. In this, I'm getting some lines here. Maybe I want to take those down a little bit. It looks like it's kind of poking out and not really blending in some. So I just want to go through and say, okay, well, maybe that's my light wrap. My light wrap seems to be helping it, not hurting it. So maybe I could actually play with my light wrap settings. Nope, that's going to be good the way it is there. Maybe I want to go to my key light. Tweak some of these settings. There we go. That looks a little bit better. There we go. Just cut his hand off. And Nuke just quit. Okay, so play with it until you get, until you're happy with it. And then obviously when I'm happy with it. And you can have me look at it before you even render it out of Nuke. That way I can, before you go through the After Effects part, I can take a look. So then we'll write it out. Same business we've done before. Okay. Again, always make sure you kind of have screen replacement, a new folder, exported, final laptop. And then render it out. Okay. And then once it's done, put it in After Effects, and then you know the jazz for the rest of it, getting the screenshot and whatever else. Okay. And that's it.